Hello there, Dragonfire here. Alright, so a while back I did a video on my Beatles CD collection, and that got a ton of views. So I thought, why not, if that's the content you guys like, I'm going to go back and do a video on my favorite band of all time, Guns N' Roses. Now, the very first video I did on my channel was kind of a similar video to this one, but this time I'm doing it a little bit differently, and that was over a year ago, and I have some updates to this. So this is going to be a different video than that one I did a year ago, but it's on Guns N' Roses discography. Okay, first off, I want to do this right here, entitled Roots of Guns N' Roses. This is the what actually is the Hollywood Rose demo tape, and this was kind of Guns N' Roses before they changed their name to Guns N' Roses, when they were still called Hollywood Rose. This wasn't originally released for commercial release. It was more of a thing like shopping around to record companies and trying to get a record deal. And this was recorded in 1985. They did end up getting that record deal in 86. And this was released in 2004, I believe, for the first time on CD. And it has the original Hollywood Rose demo tape, as well as remixes. The audio recording has been remixed by Gilby Clarke, who of course was in the band Guns N' Roses for a while. He actually played on their fifth album, The Spaghetti Incident, in 1993. And then the other remix was done by Fred Curry, who I believe was, and I'll let you see there, I believe he was a producer who worked on some of their Guns N' Roses other stuff as well, so that's why his name would be relevant. But Hollywood Rose, over a couple of years, like 84, 85, had some members who would later go on to be in Guns N' Roses. And on the cover there you can see a picture of Axl, Duff, and Izzy. I believe it's Axl, Duff, and Izzy. And then on the back you can see like the band playing together, and a couple of band members who you will recognize and some who you won't. But anyway, but yeah, over the couple of years that Hollywood Rose were together, a number of members filtered in and out of the band. But they recorded this 5-song demo tape. Killing Time, great song, very enjoyable. Anything Goes would later end up on Guns N' Roses' debut album, their debut full-length album. Rocker is a fun song. Shadow of Your Love is one that would later be re-recorded by Guns N' Roses and released on a special edition of their Greatest Hits as like a bonus track on the special edition of Greatest Hits. And Reckless Life, which would become a big would also become a song for them that they would Guns N' Roses would later re-release. So now on the Gilby Clarke mixes, like I said, Gilby Clarke was in the band in like 93 and played on one of their studio albums. He actually put some tracks in there by Tracy Guns, or some overlay guitars on by Tracy Guns, and like mixes Tracy Guns guitar solos into the mix for Shadow of Your Love and Reckless Life. So on the Gilby Clarke remixes, which I highly recommend hearing that Tracy Guns guitar solo. And yeah, it's pretty cool. This sounds kind of like Guns N' Roses, especially with Axl's vocals. Perhaps the most distinct thing about Guns N' Roses is the vocals of Axl Rose. So this does kind of it will remind you of Guns N' Roses, but it is very, very raw. That's the only way I can know how to describe it. I don't know all the musical terms for this or that, but it's very raw sounding, and it's like a kick in the face in the best way possible. It just comes at you, and very, very raw sounding. So yeah. The originals are good. The ones with Tracy Gunn's guitar solos are good. The ones, they're all good. Slightly different mixes of the same songs, but yeah, it's worth checking out Roots of Guns N' Roses to check out the Hollywood Rose demo tape. Okay, then Guns N' Roses would officially form later in 1985 when Tracy Guns would stop his former band. He had a band called LA Guns, and join forces with Axl Rose and his band Hollywood Rose. And of course, both bands were named after those guys. LA Guns named after Tracy Guns, Hollywood Rose named after Axl Rose. And so it was like, I guess supposedly it was Axl's idea to combine the two names and be like, hey, Guns N' Roses, right? Guns N' Roses. And so that's where the name comes from. And that original lineup would stay together for only a very short time in late 1985. And it would be Axl Rose, lead vocals, Tracy Guns on lead guitar, and Izzy Stradlin on rhythm guitar, and then a couple of the older members of LA Guns would be bass guitar and drums. But shortly thereafter, that original lineup wouldn't be together for very long, and I don't remember those guys' names. But then they wouldn't be together very long, and then on bass guitar, Duff McKagan, who again was formerly part of Hollywood Rose, would come in, and he would be the new bass guitar player, and Steven Adler would come in and be the new drummer. And Tracy Guns would leave and reform his old band LA Guns, and LA Guns would be his band going forward. And about a year after Guns N' Roses were signed to a record deal, LA Guns was signed to their own record deal, and they put out some albums. And they were a good band. They had some good stuff, but they never reached the level that Guns N' Roses did. Never reached that level of fame. Okay, so this is the only LA Guns album that I own. This is Cocked and Loaded from 1989. But they had several other decent albums. I'd like to get more of their stuff. But anyway, yeah, this is LA Guns. Again, this is Tracy Guns' band, and he's the lead guitarist. And this is one of their more famous albums, especially their stuff in the 80s is what they're best known for. But anyway, with Tracy Guns out, the new lead guitarist who would come in would be Slash. And so it would be Axl, Slash, Izzy, Duff, and Adler that would make up the classic lineup of Guns N' Roses, and they would get signed to a record deal. And in '86, they would put out the Live Like a Suicide EP. Or is it Live Like a Suicide? I think most people pronounce it Live Like a Suicide. But anyway, this original EP would have Mama Ken, Nice Boys, or let me read them in order here. Reckless Life, Nice Boys, Mama Ken, and Move to the City. I did it again. I don't know why I'm inverting the names. Reckless Life, Nice Boys, Move to the City, and then Mama Kin. Mama Kin's the last one on the track listing. Mama Kin is a cover of Aerosmith. I'm not sure which of these other songs are covers. Of course, you'll recognize Reckless Life from the demo tape. So that was one song from the demo tape that made it over to their debut EP. And if you're not familiar with the term EP, it stands for like half an album. It stands for extended play. It just means it's longer than a single. But an EP in length is about half the length of a regular album. And so usually between like 3 to 6 songs, somewhere in that range, is an EP, and usually like less than half an hour long. So yeah, the Live Like a Suicide EP was printed only in limited edition and was only available I believe in the Los Angeles area, and it was just kind of limited edition print and just seeing if the band had a fan base, which they did, and the EP sold out. So it did well in the Los Angeles area, letting the record company know that the band did have a fan base. And so they would go into the studio and work on their first full-length debut studio album, which would end up being Appetite for Destruction. This album cover is very iconic, even though it's people who know Guns N' Roses will know this is not the original album cover. Originally it was a painting called Appetite for Destruction that Axl really liked. It was deemed too crude to be printed under the original album cover, so they changed it to this. But this is still iconic for a lot of people. I know I have a sticker on mine, unfortunately. It covers up a little bit of the Guns N' Roses album cover, but yeah. So yeah, Appetite for Destruction, this was a great big hit record. I mean, it took a while for it to get going, but eventually became one of the best-selling albums of all time. Kicks things off with Welcome to the Jungle, followed by It's So Easy, Night Train, Out to Get Me, Mr. Brownstone, Paradise City, My Michelle, Think About You, Sweet Child of Mine, You're Crazy, Anything Goes, and Rocket Queen. And Welcome to the Jungle, a great opener. Rocket Queen, a great closer. Of course, Welcome to the Jungle, Paradise City, and Sweet Child of Mine was the 3 big hits off of this album. But on channels that kind of specialized in like rock and hard rock and weren't just pop channels, the whole album did great. I mean, I think if you listen to like a hard rock channel, a hard rock or heavy metal channel that plays like classic rock from this era or whatever, you probably heard every song from this album because it's so good. Yeah, to me, every song on here is 5 out of 5 stars. I love this album so much. It's my favorite album of all time. Love this. Now, there was a delay, or well, not a delay, but when it started to get popular, the record company wanted them to release a follow-up. Axl wanted to re-release the songs from Live Like a Suicide because he didn't like the fact that it was only limited edition, only certain people had access to it, and there had been rumors that people had been selling copies for really expensive prices and whatever. Anyway, you want those songs to get out to people, and I just don't think they were ready for a follow-up yet. So they only had a few new songs. But anyway, they ended up the next year, in 1988, releasing GNR Lies. So it re-releases the songs from the 1986 EP, Reckless Life, Nice Boys, Moved to the City, and Mama Ken, along with 4 new songs is Patience, Used to Love Her, and an acoustic version of You're Crazy. You're Crazy had been on the Appetite for Destruction album, but Axl actually said that he envisioned the song as an acoustic song. It's just that the acoustic version wouldn't have fit on the Appetite for Destruction album for the style and the theme they were going for with Appetite for Destruction. So the acoustic version ended up getting released here instead. It was saved and released later, and then it's followed up. The final track on here is 1 in a Million. 1 in a Million was very controversial song that got the band in a lot of trouble, and also it's just stupid. I don't like 1 in a Million. I love all the other Guns N' Roses songs on here. I think the acoustic version of You're Crazy and the electric version from Appetite for Destruction, both versions of that song are equally as good. I think they're both really good. And Used to Love Her and Patience are 2 of my favorite songs of Guns N' Roses. Patience was another hit, and the only song off of this GNR Lies, their second album from 1988, the only song on this one that would actually end up on their greatest hits. But it was a big hit song. I believe it went all the way to number 2 on mainstream charts. Sweet Child of Mine went all the way to number 1 from their debut album. But Welcome to the Jungle and Paradise City were also hit songs that were somewhere in top 40 at least, if not 30, 20, top 10, whatever. But yeah. But anyway, after 1988, they did a lot of touring and whatnot, and they were a very controversial band with their tours and riots that broke out and this, that, and the other. But they didn't. But it would be a while before they started getting back together to record new material in the studio. And when they did, by the time they decided to come back in and start working on what would be their 3rd and 4th albums, they had added a keyboardist to the group, so Dizzy Reed starts playing on there, and that lineup with Axl / Izzy, Duff, Adler, and Dizzy. So now they've gone from a 5-person band to a 6-person band. Would record the song Civil War, which would actually end up on Use Your Illusion 2, but Use Your Illusion 1 and Use Your Illusion 2 were released on the same day, but weren't released until 1991 when they were finished. But that would be the last song. Civil War would be the last song recorded with Steven Adler on drums. He would leave the band and be replaced with Gilby. Man, my brain is escaping me right now. Matt Sorum on drums for most of the Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 songs. So yeah, Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 would be released on the same day in 1991. They would be big albums. These albums on record and on cassette tape were considered double albums. CDs are longer, so they could fit it all on one CD. But these are generally considered these big double albums. Use Your Illusion 1 here is got some great stuff. It's kicks things off with Right Next Door to Hell. Then Dust and Bones, Live and Let Die, Don't Cry. This is the original version of Don't Cry. An alternate version would be on Use Your Illusion 2. Perfect Crime, You Ain't the First, Bad Obsession, Back Off Bitch, Double Talk and Jive, November Rain, The Garden, Garden of Eden, Don't Blame Me, Don't Damn Me. That's the name of the song, Don't Damn Me. Don't Blame Me is a song by Alice Cooper, but yeah. Bad Apples, Dead Horse, and Coma. So a big 16 track list here on Use Your Illusion 1. Live and Let Die was a big hit. November Rain was a big hit, and the music video was big. Actually, that was part of a trilogy of music videos. There was a music video for Don't Cry, or no, November Rain, Don't Cry, and Estranged, which I think, which Estranged is on Use Your Illusion 2, but I think Estranged is probably a little bit of an overrated song that only got popular as it did because of its music video. I think I actually prefer a live version that I've heard before. I've heard the live version of Estranged, and I think it's actually a little better live than the studio recorded version. But yeah, Don't Cry, Live and Let Die, which is a cover of Paul McCartney and Wings. In November Rain. Those were the big hit songs on this. I really like Back Off Bitch. That's one of my favorites. But yeah, really enjoyable album, Use Your Illusion 1. And I go back and forth between which one I like better between Use Your Illusion 1 and Use Your Illusion 2. But this is another great one. Use Your Illusion 2 opens up with Civil War, again, which was the last song recorded with Steven Adler on drums before Matt Sorum took over and did all the other songs that ended up on the Use Your Illusion album. I believe Civil War is the only one that's credited to Steven Adler. All the others are, for both Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, are credited to Matt Sorum for playing the drums on those tracks. But yeah, 14 Years, I believe, was kind of a minor hit for them. Yesterdays, I believe, also may have been a little bit of a minor hit for Guns N' Roses. Knocking on Heaven's Door was a big hit. That's a cover of Bob Dylan. Get in the Ring is the next track after that, number 5. Shotgun Blues. Breakdown, Pretty Tied Up, one of my personal favorites, even though it wasn't a hit. Locomotive, So Fine. Estranged, like I said, I think Estranged really got a boost from the music video. And then track number 12 is You Could Be Mine. I absolutely love the song. I love the music video. I love the fact that it was, the Terminator 2 soundtrack song, the big song from that soundtrack, and the music video has Arnold Schwarzenegger in it. And then we get the alternate version of Don't Cry, and finally closing out with My World. So, there were 16 tracks on Use Your Illusion 1, 14 on Use Your Illusion 2. So a total of 30 tracks from the 2 Use Your Illusion albums. And Appetite had 12 songs, GNR Lies has 8, so a total of 20 songs there. So 50 tracks on their first 4 albums. If they had released kind of a more standard album release, they could have probably gotten 5 albums out of that with like 10 tracks each. But Guns N' Roses just doing their own thing. But anyway, so after recording Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, of course, they go on tour again to promote the albums and that. And do all that, and they were pretty successful. And the albums debuted at like number 1 and number 2, so it was a big deal for them. Guns N' Roses' Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 both come out on the same day in 1991. And then there would be more turnover in the band. Izzy Stradlin, one of the founding members, would leave. Leaving, I believe, only Axl Rose at that point was the only founding member of Guns N' Roses left once Izzy left. But out of the classic lineup, you still had Slash and Duff. But yeah, for this album, for the Spaghetti Incident, which would come out in 1993, Gilby Clarke joined the band, and he would replace Izzy Stradlin on rhythm guitar. So now the lineup was Axl, Slash, Gilby, Duff, Sorum, and Dizzy on keyboards. So Dizzy Reed's still in the band there. And yeah, this would be an album of all covers. Every single song that was recorded for this was a cover song. And it's got Since I Don't Have You, originally by the Skylanders, New Rose by the Damned, Down on the Farm by the UK Subs, Human Being by Johnny Thunders, or by the New York Dolls, by the New York Dolls, written by Johnny Thunders. Raw Power by Izzy and the Stooges. Ain't It Fun by the Dead Boys. Now, I want to say that Since I Don't Have You, to me, is by far the best song on this album. It's awesome. I love it. That's why it made it onto the greatest hits. Probably the second best song on this album, and the only other one that made it onto the greatest hits from this album is Ain't It Fun, which was originally recorded by the Dead Boys. That's track number 6. And track number 7 is kind of a medley recording of Buick Maniac and Big Dumb Sex, which Buick Maniac is originally by T-Rex and Big Dumb Sex by Soundgarden. Hair of the Dog by Nazareth is the next track. Then after that, Attitude by the Misfits. Black Leather by the Sex Pistols. You Can't Put Your Arm Around a Memory by Johnny Thunders. I Don't Care About You by The Fear. And then if you listen after track 12, there's a bonus track not listed here, but it continues playing after I Don't Care About You is over, and the track is Ain't That Your Game Girl, or Look at Your Game Girl. Look at Your Game Girl, which is a song that was originally recorded by Charles Manson and the Manson family. And yes, that is that cult group that murdered those people in the 60s. And Guns N' Roses re-records one of their tracks here. So the other band that recorded re-recorded a song by Charles Manson and the Manson family would be the Beach Boys. So Guns N' Roses and the Beach Boys. There you go. Answer to a trivia question there. Anyway, so that run, when they put out those albums, their their five full-length studio albums from 87 to 93 is usually considered the classic era of Guns N' Roses. And they had 8 different people in the band during that time. There's 2 drummers and 2 rhythm guitarists. And at one point they added a keyboardist. And so 8 different people in the band during that run all together. But this live album release is their most generally well-known live album release. It's a 2-disc set, and it has songs that were recorded during that time period. All these are from concerts that took place between 87 and 93, the same years that they released their biggest albums, their 5 full-length studio albums. So on here it's got Night Train, Mr. Brownstone, It's So Easy, Welcome to the Jungle, Dust and Bones, My Michelle, You're Crazy, Used to Love Her, Patience, It's Alright, November Rain. That's disc 1. Disc 2 is Out to Get Me, Pretty Tied Up, Yesterdays, Moved to the City, You Could Be Mine, Rocket Queen, Sweet Child O' Mine, Knocking on Heaven's Door, Don't Cry, Estranged, and Paradise City. So both tracks have, both discs have 11 songs, and all these are live performances between 87 and 93, where these tracks were recorded. So pretty cool to have some live Guns N' Roses from their prime years. And of course the album, like 15 years in the making, that finally came out in 2008, Chinese Democracy. By the time any of the recordings that were used on this album came out, I believe all the earlier stuff with some of the earlier band members have been scrapped. So at this time, shortly after recording the Spaghetti Incident, Gilby Clarke was fired from the band. Axl Rose kicked him out. And then Matt Sorum would leave. Duff McKagan would leave. Slash would leave. And that's one thing, is like Slash's lead guitar is probably the second most identifiable thing with Guns N' Roses, the first being Axl's vocals. But it doesn't really feel like Guns N' Roses without Slash on lead guitar, even though he wasn't the original lead guitarist. Tracy Guns was, but Tracy Guns was lead guitarist before the band became famous. And, you can only hear maybe Tracy Guns guitar solos on, their original Hollywood Rose demo tape, or if you listen to some LA Guns records or whatever, you might think it might be interesting what Guns N' Roses might have done if Tracy Guns had stayed their lead guitarist. But Slash is identifiable lead guitarist and a very well-known and beloved musician. And when he left the band, at that point, like everyone who had played on the first 5 albums, around 96 or 97 by the time the final person left, everyone who had played on the first 5 albums, except for Axl Rose and Dizzy Reed, were gone. So it was just Axl and Dizzy, just the lead guitarist and the keyboardist. And remember, the keyboard is only used on some tracks, and it only came in for the recording of Use Your Illusion 1 and 2. I believe it was maybe used some keyboards on the Spaghetti Incident. And part of the live band, he's part of the live band, so they can do tracks when they perform live in concert with keyboards. But that makes, since none of the early stuff, even though they had been working on this album since about 93 or 94, and finally released in 2008. None of the really early stuff they had worked on actually ended up on the album. It was only like post like 97 stuff that actually ended up on the album. So this is for all practical purposes an Axl Rose solo album. And the best parts of this album are when Axl's vocals really stand out. So you got Chinese Democracy, Shackler's Revenge. Yeah, Chinese Democracy, Shackler's Revenge, Better, Street of Dreams, If the World, There Was a Time, Catcher in the Rye, Scrapped, Raid in the Bendos. I never know how to pronounce that. The title of track number 9. I'm not sure how you're supposed to pronounce that. Track 10 is Sorry, followed by IRS, Madagascar, This I Love, and finally Prostitute. Yeah, that's Chinese Democracy. It's an interesting album, but to me it doesn't feel like classic Guns N' Roses. Again, you don't have Slash on lead guitar, or Duff, Izzy, or even Gilby on the other guitars. You don't have drummer Matt Sorum or Steven Adler. I mean, you don't have any of the classic members of Guns N' Roses really, except for Axl and Dizzy. So now I want to move on to my Guns N' Roses side project stuff. So I got Slash after leaving Guns N' Roses did a solo album called Slash's Snake Pit, and well, I guess Slash's Snake Pit is supposed to be the name of the band, but it has Slash's name in front of it, so it is, for all intensive purposes, a solo album for Slash. It's called It's 5 O'Clock Somewhere. As you can see on the bottom there, It's 5 O'Clock Somewhere by Slash's Snake Pit. Yeah, it's enjoyable. Slash is, in my opinion, one of the greatest guitarists of all time. And Izzy also put out a solo album, or his band, which he called Izzy Stradlin and the Juju Hounds. Remember, he left the band in like 92, 93, something like that, before the recording of the Spaghetti Incident, because that's the album that had Gilby Clarke as rhythm guitarist instead. But yeah, this is his band that he formed as a solo band after leaving Guns N' Roses, and I believe this is their one and only CD. Now this next band was a band that featured a lot of ex-members of Guns N' Roses over the years, and I believe Izzy Stradlin, Gilby Clarke, Duff McKagan, Slash, and Steven Adler, I think, all at one time or another played with Velvet Revolver. So a lot of former Guns N' Roses members for Velvet Revolver. I think they had 2 albums. I only have this one. This is the one I have. This one is called Contraband by Velvet Revolver, which I believe is their first of 2 albums that Velvet Revolver put out. So if you like the musicianship of Guns N' Roses but don't like Axl's vocals, maybe this band is for you. I like Axl's vocals, so but yeah, pretty good CD from Velvet Revolver. So that pretty much wraps it up. That is my Guns N' Roses collection. Hope you enjoyed watching this video. God bless everybody. Dragonfire out.